Man, I should really start scripting my intros. But yeah, welcome everybody, and here in this video, I'm going to be looking at two Persona web games that I found on a Discord server while I was chatting with someone, sent the links to the game, and I was like, dang, I've never seen that before. Looked it up on YouTube, haven't heard anything about it. But yeah, basically, these games are Persona 3 the night before, and Persona Einsof, believe that's how it's pronounced. Sorry if I get that wrong. And yeah, I just want to talk about them and talk about what I've dug up and my ideas on what the games could be. Don't really know everything though because these are closed games. They're done for, and they're all, or they were all in Japanese too. So no clue about any of this. Persona 3 The Night Before was an online web game about the night before the events of Persona 3. Every day, you had an hour of playtime before you were kicked out of the game until the server reset a day later. Pretty extreme way to simulate the Dark Hour from Persona 3, but okay. During this hour, you can make progress scaling the 200 floors of Tartarus. From my understanding, the gameplay was the standard Neo Persona game, one more system. Players had a maximum level of 250 until further updates to the game were added, which increased the amount of levels, floors in Tartarus, and unique items in the game. On the game's fandom page, it also mentions that players could go through the game as a shadow, which is pretty different from the concept of other Persona games. Additionally, the only characters that are actually from the mainline, well, I mean, not really mainline, but from the Persona series, are Igor, pretty obviously, and some shop owners from Persona 3. From what I've found, there's really nothing said about the protagonist of this game. To my knowledge, no sprite or name for the MC was included in this game. Well, actually, little thing here, post recording that I found. I did do some Google translating of some Japanese sites, and I found this screenshot. Yeah, I think that might be weird Google Translate because I don't speak Japanese. Okay. But it could mean that the protagonist's name is Eve. I don't know though. Don't take my word for it, you know. But pretty interesting nonetheless. One thing that I found pretty cool about this game is that your persona is decided by basically taking a personality quiz. While I don't know what the questions were, I do know the personas you could get from taking the quiz. The starting personas being Eligor, Angel, Inugami, and Pixie. A persona that you got would later evolve multiple times into much stronger personas than you start with. Now, with all the facts out of the way, I'd like to start talking about some of my theories and ideas about the game. While it's hard to get much from what little is known about this game, heck, that's why I'm making this video, I want to talk about some ideas I have about the web games lost to time. Theory number one, the MC can't change personas. Now, the only real piece of evidence I have for this is that the MC's starting persona evolves multiple times. Usually in Persona games, there isn't a need for this because you can collect and fuse off personas to get better ones. Honestly, I think it would be a lot easier to balance too, which leads into my second ideas for the game. Idea 2. What in name is playing as a shadow? This really is an idea. I'm just really confused. The fandom also says that players could win rewards for each side, shadow or persona user respectively. Does this mean there was like some type of splatfest of persona users and shadows? What a far cry from the rest of the games Atlas has made. They really have a bad track record with MMOs. Wow, I just kind of realized that I had two theories slash ideas, and one of them was just confusion. Sadly, Persona 3 and the night before was all in Japanese, and the game only lasted from June of 2006 to February 2008. Good news though, it was only discontinued to make room for Persona Einsof, or Poo? Or maybe it's P00? Oh, and by the way, Einsof means unending or infinity. It's a little thing to keep in mind there. Really, I have no idea why it's abbreviated to P00 or Poo, I guess. Heck, even one of the Japanese sites on the game had it abbreviated to PAS, which makes way more sense. My only real guess is that the two zeros kind of look like an infinity sign, but that's really a big stretch. Another thing I'd like to mention about the cover of this game is that it has those weird demon window vent things found everywhere in the labyrinth of Amala from Nocturne, but I'm going to talk about those later on. The known plot of Persona Einsof is pretty minimal, from what I know at least, but still has some pretty interesting ideas for the Persona series. Basically, your unnamed protagonist is greeted by Igor in the Velvet Room. about how most of the modern games start, but the things start to pick up when he tells you about the game's dungeon, Qliphoth. I think that's how it's pronounced. Well, Qliphoth is located inside the Velvet Room. You call it to the power of Persona and open the door to the mysterious nightmare labyrinth called Qliphoth. Qliphoth? 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 I guess. Igor pretty much sends you to find answers on the place, and from what I found, not a ton is known about Qliphoth. Qliphoth, I just decided that. Stick with one. I did some research of what Qliphoth is, which is a pretty important step in piecing together what this dungeon could be. So without further ado, let's get into what I found. So basically, Qliphoth is the name given to each sphere on the Tree of Death in Kabbalism. The Qliphoth are essentially parallels to the Sephiroth found on the Tree of Life. There's a sort of light and dark contrast with the elements of the two trees. For example, the first element of the Tree of Light, Kether, is sort of a state of union, while the first element on the Tree of Death, Thamiel, is more of a state of polarizing opposition. Sorry, that was kind of a big explanation, but it's hard when a lot of these terms in Kabbalism don't have 100% clear definitions. What a headache. Now remember when I was talking about those weird window-like shapes from the Labyrinth of Amala? Well, this is where they come into action. Now this might be a bit of a stretch because the one connection between Qliphoth and the Labyrinth of Amala is some fancy demon decor, but hear me out. So the Labyrinth of Amala is based on the Japanese underworld called Makai. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. There really isn't much that I found about Makai because most of the posts are about anime games and stuff like that instead of actual Japanese mythology. But from what I found, Makai literally translates to evil world or demon world. From this connection, I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to assume that the dungeon Qliphoth is an infinite dungeon with segments focusing on each element of the Tree of Death. Each segment of the dungeon teeming with the demonic residents of Makai. That's about it for the dungeon aspect of the game, or at least from what I've put together about it. Let's move on to some of the mechanics. You know how Persona 3 the night before would boot you out of the game after you played your hour a day? Makes a bit of sense, right? Kind of simulated the Dark Hour because it was Persona 3 related, you know? But even in Persona 1 Soft, they had a similar system. To be fair, it sounds vastly better, but still, it is a pretty cheap way to make progress in the game seem like more than it is. So basically, Einsoft has a fatigue mechanic. For every action you take, you'll gain some fatigue until the meter at the top left corner reaches 100%. Once at 100% fatigue, you'll no longer be able to play the game until the servers reset the next day. Additionally, you will gain extra fatigue from losing battles. Another mechanic of Persona 3 Einsoft is the fame system. You get fame points from doing well in battle and lose them by doing the opposite. I really have no clue what this fame system grants you for having a high amount of fame, but I can still speculate. Some ideas I've had for the benefits of the fame system are: fame gets you a cost reduction when buying from shops. I assume there are shops? I really have no clue, bruh. It has been hard researching this stuff, man. The fame system might also make negotiating with shadows, demons, or personas easier. Really don't know what it is in this game. Lastly, a higher fame could give you a higher priority in the game's marketplace. Which that leads me into Persona Einsoft's largest update, the Persona 4 update. For the release of Persona 4, Atlas decided to update Persona Einsoft and add Margaret into the game. The whole deal with Margaret is that she lets you buy items from other players that have posted their items up for sale at a price of their choosing. Pretty standard MMO JRPG feature, but nonetheless a pretty cool addition to the game. In theory, I mean, I can't play any of this. Sadly, though, Persona 1 Soft had about the same runtime as Persona 3 the night before, only lasting around 2 years. Well, yeah, that about wraps up what I found for this video. I hope that this was at least decently informative. I'm kind of surprised on how I found no one on YouTube talking about this. If you have any skill translating Japanese to English or have played these games at all, feel free to hit me up at my Discord below in the description. I'm really curious about what else there is to uncover about these games. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my other Megami Tensei video I have up on this channel. There'll be more on the horizon. Thanks for watching. See ya.